Welcome to episode 77 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of February 7th, 2024. My name's Logan Plant, and I'm joined, as always, by Justin Coreyes. Hi, Justin.
What's up, Logan?
Your intro was restored this week. I felt bad about it last week, so I brought it back for you.
And Chris was about it. He knows what he did.
And Chris Driver. Hi, Chris.
Saving the best for last.
Nice. Okay, yeah.
I don't
There's
know.
always going to be. There's too many politics involved with the introductions now. I think I'm just no longer going to introduce you. We'll just get right into it.
They'll figure out who we are.
Yeah, we will. You'll know. Just read the description. The names are always in there. We've got a fun show for you this week. Not as fun as we'd hoped, because we were hoping we'd be talking about a Nintendo Direct, but alas, one did not happen. But we're still going to make a show out of everything that did happen this week, including, it's my favorite, quarterly financial results. I love it. These guys love sitting here and talking with me about the Nintendo financials every 3 months, so I'm looking forward to that. But let's get started with a PSA from Chris Shriver about where you need to be this Saturday, February 10th.
Yes. So for those of you who have not yet seen over on our Twitter account, we went ahead and made our Discord public, so it's now a community. You can now join it. We are using that to coordinate our very first game night. That game night is going to be a 3DS-centric game night. So we're going to be starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Logan's laughing. I don't know why.
Because we're just our first ever game night. Break out your 3DS.
Break out your 3DS. Oh, it gets better. Break out your copy of Kid Icarus Uprising, which has there are so many of those out there, I'm sure. And your kickstands as well. We're going to be playing that. We're also going to be playing Smash 3DS as well as Mario Kart 7. Depending upon how many people end up joining, we'll determine at least how we start rolling it out. It's going to be a little looser. It's the first time doing this. But yeah, we would love to have you join. We've already got a good number of people on the server. So thank you to everybody who has joined us. And we look forward to playing with you guys. It should be a good time.
And Chris, you've busted out Kid Icarus Uprising to start preparing. How's that going?
Man, I tweeted last night, how do you play this game? A Google search, how do you play this game without getting arthritis? Funny enough, like, it is a little bit like an evolution of Star Fox. Like, you do realize that, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's better. It's better than Star Fox.
I don't know that I go that far.
Well,
I'd say it's different. Do you think, but without getting too far into it, do you think it would be better if it were dual analog stick instead of a touch screen, or do you think the touch screen adds to it?
I like the touchscreen controls. It never super bothered me, but I think if it had motion controls for aiming, that would be sweet. I would love that. If it was on a TV, if it was on a Switch, and you could choose either, like Splatoon has it, a mix of analog stick and motion controls, or you can just turn motion off altogether, it'd be nearly the perfect video game.
Yeah. That's an opinion.
It sure is. It's outstanding. I can't wait to play Kid Icarus with all of you. One more time, what's that time, Chris?
So that is going to be 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. What I am going to do for the sake of on Saturday, yes, and that is February 10th for those in the future. So if you're past February 10th, 2024, too bad you missed it. But hopefully we'll do another one before the servers go down. I am I'm going to make a new public channel just for friend codes.
Cool. Good call.
For 3DS and Wii U, just so we all have one like central space, and we don't have to go hunting for things, because I'm gonna have to add a lot of people probably.
Your good old Nintendo Network ID, as it was known back in
yes. So if you, by the time you're listening to this, that channel will exist. So I do ask, if you're planning on playing with us, that you add those IDs to that channel.
Awesome. Yeah, look forward to seeing some of you Boardroom fans there. Justin won't be joining us. He doesn't own Kid Icarus Uprising, sadly.
I don't, and I was just looking at prices, and I'm going to continue to not own Kid Icarus Uprising.
What is it going for?
New copy, about $200.
What about a used one?
50. It seems you can get a used cart.
Ooh, that's still pretty steep.
That's pretty steep for a 12-year-old game.
3DS game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the rare ones out there. Okay, let's get into our first-ish topic, which is the missing Nintendo Direct. We were pretty confident last week we'd be sitting here reacting to a February Nintendo Direct, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. There's, of course, always rumors. It's coming next week. That's the eternal carrot on the stick dangling in front of Nintendo fans. It's happening next week. That's what they always say. I don't know if I buy it, but... regardless, I kind of think we need one, and whether or not we get one this month or not, I will say if we don't, like a Switch 2 reveal is imminent. I'll just throw that out there. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I want to gauge your reactions, but if we don't get a Direct this month or next month, I think we're seeing new hardware in April. I'm just throwing that out there. Justin, what do you think?
Wait, what do you mean new hardware in April? What do you mean seeing new hardware in April?
Like revealed.
Okay.
They'll reveal it in April. Yeah.
Right. I think that seems feasible.
It's like a Saturn shadow drop onto store shelves.
It's under your chair now. Yeah, I think that's feasible. I think what I sort of had pegged in my mind was like early Q2, maybe late Q1 would be around the time I would feel like we're going to see that, because that gives it that 6-month run up to like that September, October, November time period. So I'm with you. I think that's very plausible.
What do you think, Chris?
I feel like I spent a lot of time today thinking about this. And I'm actually starting to wonder if they'll wait for like almost like right before I know E3's gone, but like Summer Game Fest time frame at
that,
this
like
point.
June period.
Like early June, late May, targeting a October or November release window. Is kind of where I'm falling with this.
I just think that Nintendo learned with both Directs and the way they rolled out the Switch that they can dominate the conversation and people will listen. When they have something to say, people will show up for it. So why do it in June when everybody's doing something instead of doing it in April when nobody does anything?
I don't disagree. I don't know. I just have a feeling like they need a little more time to get their ducks in a row, and they want the games that they're releasing to like breathe a little bit. Like, not that releasing like Peach and Mario vs. Donkey Kong is like you're sending them out to die. Like if you announce the next console like the next day, like I just think they want to give them like a month to kind of go out. I guess that would be April.
Yeah, I would say in particular what I was thinking was like after Princess Peach Showtime would be logical. Like give that not have that shackled to anything, because I feel like after that you don't have any really major significant releases. You've got the Thousand Year Door re-release, but I feel like something like that would be fairly insured from or fairly insulated from an upcoming console.
Yeah, I think so too. And Nintendo's, to get really into the weeds on it, Nintendo's fiscal year ends on March 31st. And they have their big end-of-year shareholders meeting. And then I can see them wrapping that up with Switch still being the focus. And then shortly into the start of the next fiscal year, it becomes clear that this year is about the next console. I think that's how it's going to go down. And Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa, in their investor quarterly report this week, he said, going into 2024 is about Nintendo Switch for us. And some people freaked out about that. And we'll actually skip ahead now since I brought it up. This was supposed to be our second topic. But Nintendo President says the current Switch will be Nintendo's main business in 2024. And the report in a conference call, which was after the earnings, said it would be the main business heading into 2024. And the company's plan for the next fiscal year will be shared at its next earnings briefing, which is in May. So I don't know. Does that mean by the time we get to the first week of May, this console will be out there in the public? Because they had to announce NX, which became Nintendo Switch, to their shareholders so early because they were all ready to bail, right? Nintendo was sinking and some investors were about to jump overboard. So they said, wait, we have this NX in the works. It was not the ideal way to roll out a console, right? Because then we all knew about it before the official branding was out there, before years before, right? Like, we knew about NX in early 2015, and it wasn't revealed for a year and a half. I like to think that this time, maybe they reveal the console right ahead of this next earnings briefing, late April, early May, and then when they go into that, they say, hey, this is our plan for the end of the year. Justin, thoughts?
I like it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I also think, those quotes from like Mr. Furukawa aren't necessarily, don't exclude that possibility. The start of 2024 is where we are right now, and that doesn't tell you much about what the business is going to be like. We've talked a lot about the idea that the next Nintendo console is going to be a fall release, which means the last 3 months of the year, which means the hardware that's on the market right now, yes, that will make up the bulk of their business for 2024. I don't think any of that says anything to contradict sort of what we've been expecting, and I think that those timelines make a lot of sense. Investor calls, it is a mixture of giving investors useful and key information, and it is a little bit of like gamesmanship, a little bit of investor confidence building, a little bit of work kind of on the feelings and psyche of the folks who own the purse strings, and being able to approach that strategically and do reveals in ways that lead into it and are conducive to investor confidence, I think is what a business like Nintendo would prefer to do.
Yeah, I agree, and they're still trying to sell Switches until the day they reveal the next unit. They want to sell as many Switches.
They want to sell every Switch that has ever been produced, and which means that
they're slapping Animal Crossing leaves on them and Smash Brothers cross symbols on them. It's why they're doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah, Chris, do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, that was my biggest thing. Was I feel like it's a duh. When they're like, selling Switch content is our main focus in 2024. It's like, yeah, it should be. It's your core business right now. You got however many 100 million. They announced 139.36 million out there. Like, yeah, it should be your primary business focus at this point. Even if a new console comes out, it's like, great. There's hype around that and there's buzz around that for the diehard, but not everybody's buying that day one, and they can't sell that many day one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if the new console launches this year, Switch will still outsell it in 2020.
Right.
Just from a pure availability standpoint. If there's been reports saying it's going to be 10 million to try and sell through by the end of 2024, Switch will sell more than 10 million this year. It just will.
Yeah.
So I think that, it's you can never read too much into this. Justin nailed it. Like, they're trying to tell the shareholders why this is going to be the best year ever, and they're saying, hey, we're going to sell a bunch of Switches. They're not going to say, oh, just wait for our next console because word's going to get out and then Switch will fall off a cliff. And they don't want that.
I mean, at the end, the thing to keep in mind too is like every year you get another group of people. I was talking to my brother-in-law a couple weeks ago. Every year you get another group of people that like they have expendable income, and all they want is something that they can play portably on the go. And if you've never owned a Switch, like, the library that is available to you on day one is insane. If you don't need the thing, like, the fancy new thing day one, like, you'll be fine with a Switch.
Some people will be fine with the Switch forever because they aren't as much of enthusiasts as we are, the top percentile of Nintendo fans in this podcast right now. And they'll get Tears of the Kingdom and a Switch, and they will play Tears of the Kingdom for 3 years until they finish it and are done with it. Just an hour a week for 3 years until they're ready to move on to whatever else is out, and there's a ton out. So yeah, and also we've talked about this before, but you can't ever trust them. Nintendo has said the day before revealing new hardware, we have no new hardware in the works, and then boom, the next day it's like, oh, here's the DS Lite or here's the new 3DS. It happens all the time. So don't worry, I still think it's this year. It could be next, and it's in the world, but I still think it's going to be this year. Let's talk about the other kind of component of this week, which was before Mr. Furukawa's press conference. Nintendo released their financials for the final quarter of 2023, so that is Q3 of their fiscal year, Q4 of the calendar year. Contradictory reports on which quarter we're talking about here. And Chris mentioned the number. Nintendo Switch is at 139.36 million. And Nintendo actually raised its forecast for Switch unit sales. It's overperforming their own expectations heading into its 8th year. It's very marginal. They raised their expectation by about 500,000, but still, like, it is selling better than they expected it to, and they had a pretty lofty goal heading into the year. It's just bonkers to me, the tail this thing has at 140 million. I guess my question is this thing going to catch the PS2? It's about 15 million away. Chris, what do you think?
I think it's very possible. All it's going to take is like one more special edition console to the right group of people, and they could easily crack that.
Yeah, if they knock the price down.
A price drop.
Or yeah, price drop is the next logical thing. That's right. I didn't even think of that.
A $100 price drop would do it so fast.
Yeah.
Probably like maybe within the year. If they did it this year, I would probably do it this year. But.
What if they cut the price? And I'm kind of surprised they haven't done it yet. What if they cut the price of the light to $99?
Oh my gosh!
Or
had a new SKU of it
immediately.
Yeah, like. That would be insane.
I mean, because
that thing can't cost that much to produce.
Even dweebs like us would be like, you know what? I could use another one.
I'll get another one. I'll get the purple one. That was a cool GameCube.
You know what?
Color.
Mine's got drift. I could.
Yeah.
Remember a couple weeks ago when Chris asked how many 3DSs do you all have? And Chris and I's answer was a little bit shameful. So
just a bucket full of them. Yeah.
Yeah, we would absolutely buy a $99 light. Imagine if a new Pokemon game comes out this year and they bundle new Pokemon with a Switch Lite for $149.99. Even something like that. Or even $200 with the new game included. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're going to do it.
You make it like purple with the Pokemon graphic on it. Done.
Yeah, I think they're going to do it. I don't know if Nintendo necessarily cares about the goal. They just care about selling as much as possible.
Yeah.
And
I think
end of a life cycle.
I think 2 years ago I didn't think it was going to, but it frankly hasn't slowed down. And like the only thing that would stop it would be, I feel like if the sales just completely fell off after a new console was released. I don't expect that to be the case. I expect there to be a decent amount of continued overlap between the two. Again, especially if they include something like a price drop and like certain additions and things to clear out remaining inventory and stuff. Nintendo can have the best-selling console if they choose to. I think ultimately is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
Go ahead, Chris.
Real quick. I don't know why in my head I thought the Wii was the highest selling console, like ever.
It was the highest selling Nintendo home console, but not
maybe that's where my head was at. Because PS2, 155 million.
Yeah, and like the thing keep in mind about the PS2 is like they sold that thing for well over a decade. Like it's I remember it was news.
Well, and in other markets, too.
Like Latin America, like South America, like Brazil.
Yeah.
Like Brazil remained like a hotbed for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 2 development and things like that, which is honestly kind of cool. But like a lot of what you see is like the numbers are directly affected by that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the question that we get another SKU for Nintendo Switch. I really don't. I think that the new 2DS XL launched after the Switch was already out. They released a new model of the 3DS like 6 months after the Switch had released. The Wii Mini, remember that top loader that didn't have internet connection?
Oh god, it was so bad.
That was like really at the tail end of that generation. Like it's very possible. I don't know what it would be.
I want two. Yeah. That's
give me
I want that SKU.
Give
me the Switch Micro.
Oh, yeah. There's another great example. When does that come out?
Just a tiny.
Micro. I feel like that would be kind of awesome.
That was, I don't know when in the Game Boy life cycle that was.
Yeah, it was pretty late though. Was it like 2004?
Yeah. 2005.
Oh, that's the same year as DS. Like they do.
Yeah.
This, so it's not out of the question that there could be a cheap $99 Switch to get it over the. I don't know what it'd be though, because I feel like the Switch Lite is that, and it came out 5 years ago already. Like here it is without a dock with a built-in controller. Like that is what they would do.
Yeah, like how much more do you strip out of that thing? Well, you take the cartridge out, you make it digital only. That's really the only other thing you could do.
Yeah, and again, you could make the screen physically a little smaller. You can absolutely shrink something like that down. Publish this Switch Ultralight.
Yeah.
Or what if they did the anti-Switch Lite and just released like a box, like a console that didn't have a screen, and sold that for $99? It was plugged into the
People
TV.
have been doing that mod.
And
there's like a whole kit that you can buy to do that now.
And like not to put on like old Nintendo fan guy, but like we saw stuff like that late in early console generations where they released later iterations of things like the Super Nintendo that didn't come with a game, came with a super controller, like just had fewer things and like less functionality out of the box, which for a lot of folks was like a replacement for an existing one or just an inexpensive way to get into it. Like there's no reason why they couldn't do something like that if they were so inclined.
Yeah, like even just like a Switch OLED that doesn't come with the dock. But you can buy the dock separately and still dock it if you want to. And they could sell a Switch OLED for $200.
You could buy the dock separately. You shouldn't, but you could.
Yeah, that's like the PS5 that has a disc drive, and they sell the one without the disc drive, and you can buy the disc drive if you want.
And it's so much more expensive than just buying it with the disc drive. Yeah.
So I think it'll get there. Let's talk about some other numbers, some game sales numbers that are pretty good news for Nintendo fans, especially Pikmin fans. Pikmin 4 sold 3.33 million since July.
Strong.
Through December 31st. That is already by far the best-selling game in the series. It's beat Pikmin 3 Deluxe by nearly 1 million units already, and that game's been out for several years. So that's very exciting news for Pikmin fans. Pikmin's here to stay. We will see Pikmin 5. Pretty much locks that in for me.
As long as Shigeru Miyamoto is walking this earth, Pikmin is here to stay.
Yeah, it's guaranteed. So very happy to see that number. Another great number, Super Mario RPG in just 6 weeks, because this game came out in mid-November, and these numbers run through December, sold 3.14 million. Just
incredible. It makes me thrilled. It makes me feel like there is a chance for more life in this franchise, and that's really like, if A was me wanting this game to be playable nowadays in a great package, I got that, and like wish B would be it for it to do so well that they see incentive to continue with it. And so like I hope those numbers double by the time we get our next quarterly report, and I hope that they continue to go up, and they're like, oh man, people like this weird take on the Mushroom Kingdom, and they give us more.
This game outperformed Paper Mario: The Origami King in its first month of sales. So that game came out in like July of 2020, and by March of 2021, so after about 3/4 of a year, Origami King had sold 3.12 million units. So slightly less than what RPG did in 6 weeks. And I think it shows people want Mario RPGs in general to come back. So I'm really excited to see how Thousand Year Door does, because that's one that is a true RPG.
I think there's value in that. I also do think, there's just always, you can put Mario on anything and it's going to sell well on a Nintendo platform. And I do think that if, let's say just somebody's mom and pop sees, 2 boxes with a Mario character on it, and one has a very regular Mario looking Mario and one has a stylized paper one, they're probably going to grab the more regular looking Mario off the shelves to buy for a little Timmy.
He looks regular on the art box of RPG.
More so.
He looks very
more so.
Mario wants uppies.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So and so I do think that there's some explanation for, I think, some of the gap there.
I mean, Origami King, keep in mind, like the rollout of that game was super weird. It was like a random just trailer drop in the middle of July, like right when COVID had really taken off. And fans of Mario, or fans of the Paper Mario series, really weren't a big fan of that game, just because of how different it played. I don't feel that way about it. I know Logan doesn't feel that way about it. Yeah, it's very different. It's a fun game.
I think it would be better if its combat was a traditional RPG battle system, but
sure.
I still think it's a great game.
Yeah.
I think this is great. Yeah, Origami King was weird because clearly it was supposed to be a part of a June Direct that never was, right? Because of the pandemic, it pushed back everything. Development was so uncertain there for a long time, and it still feels like we're only maybe a year removed from that, where things have started to flood out of the pipeline at almost an unsustainable rate across the industry. And yeah, that just dropped on Twitter one day. Hey, here's a new Paper Mario, and guess what? It's out in like 6 weeks. Like it was really bizarre rollout for that thing. So yeah, that could have to do with it too. RPG, they did a pretty good job marketing that.
Well marketed.
Leading up to release. There was a lot of buzz around it.
Absolutely.
Good hype cycle leading up to launch.
Yeah.
The Mario movie, that can't be ignored either. That has been huge for the Mario brand within the last year. Yeah, it's been huge. Speaking of Mario, Super Mario Bros. Wonder has sold 11.96 million units, so just shy of 12 million. It's the fastest selling Super Mario Bros. Title ever. And I don't know, am I the only one that feels like reception to this game is kind of soured in the months since it's come out? I feel like people really liked it for the first 2 weeks, and then everyone was like, it's fine.
I think people...
How do you guys feel about it?
I mean, I think...
People blew through it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
Chris.
Yeah, no, Chris, go.
And I mean, my experience, which like I've said on the show, I think a lot of people got it as a multiplayer game, and I think it's quite frankly a very bad multiplayer game. That was like the big push for this title. Was it was going to be super accessible. You know, it was kid friendly because like the Yoshis can't die and like all that kind of stuff. And then to actually play it, it's like an exercise in frustration and patience with the person that you're playing with, or their patience with you if you're, you know, speed running it and they're being left in the dust. I feel like there's that, and then from the other side of it, you have the single player people that they blew through this game in a weekend, and it was like, wow, yeah, it was a great experience, had a lot of really cool ideas, and then that was basically it. Like there really wasn't much left to talk about. Like would I play another one? Sure, but I feel like it just there's not much more to be said other than the conversation that happened in that week or two since it came out.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I think my sentiment probably matches like a lot of the communities. When it came out, I was certainly, you know, longtime listeners will know I was kind of skeptical when we saw it first, but then as we saw more and more of it, I was more and more hyped for it. And when it dropped, I was extremely impressed with it. I think that, you know, its upward trajectory playing it, you know, in terms of what we got out of it, like it very easily and clearly cleared a lot of the 2D Mario games that came before. And I think that having a lot of joy and fun and being really into that is totally valid, and I absolutely understand why early on, like, we were so hyped for it. I also feel like a lot of us found that experience didn't continue to elevate to a point of things like World or 3, and so, like, there was a certain, like, petering off of it, and I think that we've been kind of on that downward slope for a good while now. It's just one of those things where, you know, it's very easy to have the most rose-colored glasses at launch for something that we like, but we always do tend to, once we get some separation for it, look back, kind of reevaluate and take things apart, and see that it lies in that in-between, you know, but between things like the newer, like the new Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario World, and so I think that the reception to it feels appropriate.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I just think I'm higher on this one than
I think
most
so too.
people out there. Like I'd
agree with you.
Yeah, I think you
soured
are
on this game at all. I've finished it 3 times. And I loved it all 3 times. I just think it's amazing. I honestly think I'm starting to think, not from like a review reception standpoint because it scored very well, but I think that it is maybe a little bit underrated in terms of the Switch library. I think it's phenomenal, and I honestly think, I don't know, that maybe some people are starting to take great games for granted because there's amazing games coming out all the time. And I feel this way not just about Mario, but when people say something like, yeah, Spider-Man 2 just kind of came and went. Like, yeah, it's like a 20-hour single-player game. Like, not everything needs to last you 100 hours or be a life-changing experience or be something you can go back to time and time again or have a story that keeps you up at night. Like, not everything has to have that to be a great game. I'm hesitant to use the word spoiled because I think that's a little bit sharp, but it's like something.
It's like a little bit that.
Yeah, it is. Like, people are waiting for the next Elden Ring or Tears of the Kingdom or God of War, and not everything can be held to that standard. I think Mario Wonder is an amazing 2D platformer that feels incredible to control. I think it feels the best Mario has ever felt to control in 2D. Once you get used to the slightly different wall jumping, but I'm pretty used to it at this point. And I think it looks amazing, it sounds amazing. I understand the complaints about multiplayer. I think it is better in single player than multiplayer, but yeah, I just feel like unless something is earth-shattering, a like Breath of the Wild level revolution, people just say, after a while. And to me, it's like there's more value and merit in things than that. It's not all or nothing. Like, I feel like sometimes the conversation, at least in the circles that we're in online, tend to have about these things.
That's kind of what I wanted to bring up, is like, I feel like part of the circles that I'm running in now are changing now that I'm getting older, and like that circle primarily is like people that I work with, or, you know, like people around my age and they have kids, and I will say I feel like it did have more staying power there. There's still people that I know. There are people that I know that are still playing it, but I think within the gaming zeitgeist, it's like, well, you have this huge breadth of all these different types of experiences that came out, especially last year. Like, there's so many games that I did not play last year that people are like, it's the best thing I've played in 5 years, you know?
It's not. But I don't even know what you're talking about, but it's
but no, I mean, I think it's just, it is a little bit of us being spoiled. Like, there's plenty of people out there that every week or every other week there's a new title for them to dig their teeth into, and they're expecting to be blown away by everything they play, and it's like this is familiar ground. It's a 2D Mario game. You kind of know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, I also don't know that it's bad or unnatural for something like this to have a little bit lesser impact than it would have years ago. It's like, the best airplane from 1910 compared to all the airplanes of 1940, and it's like, yeah, it was great compared to that, but like this is where the quality is now. And if we have a lot of games now that are a lot higher quality, then at a certain point I think we need to level set and redefine what we consider an average game, because if an average game is like up to here in terms of quality, then that's great. Then that is what is average, and how far you exceed that really will determine your legacy. If everything is incredible, then that's your new mediocre, and so like standards should change over time. And I think that what it's run into is like a lot like the ceiling of an excellent 2D platformer and the impact that something of that genre can have. I think that it had about as much impact as one can have without doing anything that is genre redefining. And just to repeat myself, I think it's the reception is right where it should be.
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult balance, right? You don't want to change Mario too much, because then the fans will be like, "This isn't a Mario game. This is something completely different."
I think.
Yeah, imagine if you started playing tennis.
I know, or driving a car. Right? What would that be like? Mario, I think that almost. I think I said this on a review episode of Mario Wonder. I almost think people take for granted just how good Mario feels to control, because it's Mario, and he always has, and he always will. Yeah. But if another platformer came out that wasn't Mario Wonder, and it controlled as well as it does, I think people would be like, wow, they nailed it. But it's just like an expectation that Nintendo's going to nail how a platformer feels, because they've earned that reputation, right? And I think sometimes I'll boot up Mario Wonder just to rip through a couple levels, because it just feels very fun to me to just control. And like I said, in the last couple of weeks, I've been really kind of obsessed with 2D platformers lately, and that's been a really fun one for me to go back into. Yeah, I love that game. Write in if you love Mario Wonder too. I want to hear from you. Toadstool Boardroom at gmail.com. But we should move on from Mario Wonder and talk about Mario Kart 8. Speaking of Mario driving a car, this is crazy. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has passed 60 million units sold, and I know every 3 months we talk about this game, and the number just gets crazier and crazier. But the DLC Booster Course Pass really injected even more new life into this thing. 60 million copies. Mario Kart 8 is the second best-selling Nintendo game of all time, only behind Wii Sports. It's just crazy to me. This Deluxe alone, at 60 million, if you add in the Wii U sales, it's like 69 million. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been sold more times than Super Mario Brothers. More people own this game than own Super Mario Brothers. It's crazy to me. So, yeah, I don't know if there's much to add on that, but
and to be clear, it's Super Mario Brothers across every platform it's ever been released on.
Of Super Mario Brothers.
It's not just the Nintendo.
Yeah, so it's bonkers. I guess what this says to me is Nintendo's going to launch Mario Kart 9 pretty early into the next system's life cycle, because we'll probably see numbers like this again. Why wouldn't we? It's Mario Kart. Who's not going to buy Mario Kart when you get a Switch? I guess a lot of people. So there's 140 million Switches out there and 60 million Mario Karts, but yeah, it's crazy.
Well, you got double dippers.
That's true. Yeah, I know. I want to know how many actual Switch households there are. That's the number that I want, because Nintendo says 122 million annual users. But that could mean 5 users who share one Switch, or 5 people in the same household who all have their own Switch, and everything in between. So I want to know how many households have a Nintendo Switch, but I don't know how they would ever figure that out. I don't think that's a number that we'll know. And then the last thing here is it's finally happened. Odell owes me a steak dinner from one of the very early bets we made on this show, which is that Nintendo Switch Sports would crack 10 million sales lifetime, and it did this time around. 12.48 million. I said it would. Odell said that it would not. And it took a couple years. It took nearly 2 years to do it, but it did. 12.5 million. In my opinion, a pretty mediocre Nintendo Switch game. But, yeah. So, Odell, if you're listening to this, hit me up in Discord. And, yeah, we got to go to dinner next time I'm in the Bay Area. So, looking forward to that. All right, that's the bulk of our show this week. Let's get into some of the fun extra stuff. Last week, Chris wanted to talk about the Earthbound documentary and some other things that he had to share. So, Chris, what is this documentary you watched, and what did you think of it?
Yes. So, Fangamer actually released this. It's going to be coming to digital storefronts soon. Right now, if you want to watch it, you have to get it through Fangamer. You can either rent it, and this is not an ad. It's just like I saw it and I picked it up and really enjoyed it. But you can rent it. I think it's $7, or they actually released like a physical Blu-ray that you can actually put in a console or Blu-ray player and watch. It's excellent. Like Justin, I think you'd really get a kick out of it. So the premise is basically the Earthbound fandom, right? Like the genesis of that, the creation of like Starman.net, which if you're not familiar is like the fan site that kind of rallied all the Earthbound fans around the country together in the United States and like tried to get Nintendo's attention for the better part of like 10 to 15 years. And all the people, like the primary people that were a part of that site, are in the documentary, or they're represented by like actors, like as the real people are narrating, in these like really funny scenes. There's pretty good shots in it, just as far as like how all that is concerned. They like reconstructed sets, like the inside of like Nintendo headquarters and Nintendo Power headquarters. They have interviews with people from Nintendo Power that were working there at the time, and we're like, oh yeah, like we used to go on that site all the time, and would keep up with those guys. And it gets into like the Mother 3 fan translation and how all that went down. So yeah, just like a really, really well done documentary. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. And it like really rekindled my my interest in Earthbound, because I had fallen off of it when Mario RPG came out over in November. So I actually transported my save over to my Analog Pocket, and I started playing that, and now I'm actually playing through it a lot more frequently than I had been, because I was like landlocked to the Super Nintendo before on the cartridge. So it's been good. It's been good to get back into that game. But it was members yet? I have no, I have 3 at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Like if you're and even if you're not an Earthbound fan necessarily, if you're somebody who grew up in the 90s, or were just there in the 90s, or maybe you're younger and you're like, I didn't really understand the weirdness of the internet back then. They kind of like get into that. And just how it was kind of like the Wild West and people just figuring out how stuff worked. Just a really, really well done just story about this weird game that like a couple random people in the 90s really enjoyed and wanted to keep alive. Per Schneider's in it from IGN.
Yeah, Logan's boss.
Yeah,
Logan's boss.
I've been meaning to watch it. I really want to. I love Earthbound, as you all know, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But super cool that it exists. Would you say that this documentary stinks?
I would if it had a scratch and sniff in it, but it does not, unfortunately. It does have a Starman.net sticker, though, that they included, which I thought was cute.
Listeners, if you didn't know, the marketing campaign for Earthbound was "This game stinks." That is how they tried to sell that game. Very strange, but that is what they said.
Oh, that's the other thing. In the very beginning of it, they actually go through like the entire marketing push with like a woman that actually worked at Nintendo at the time. Cool. And they also have the guy who did the localization as well, and he goes into like his thoughts on it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely worth checking out for sure.
Someone on this show called that we get an Earthbound remake this year. I don't remember if it was me or Chris. I don't remember which one of us predicted it. I guess it was me because Chris wasn't on the prediction show.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would have predicted it if that makes you feel better.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hope we see that series come back. And then you had some show and tell that you wanted to do, I think, last time.
I did. They're all spread around at this point. The only thing that's left on my desk here is so right now I'm wearing the Animal Crossing The Roost hoodie. But I got this as a Secret Santa gift. This is The Roost coffee grinder from the Nintendo store.
Nice.
But it's actually like wooden. It has like a little. I'm trying to which way is forward here. It's like a little drawer, but it's like a little manual coffee grinder. I just thought it was really cute. But they have that on the Nintendo Online store. I thought that was a cute.
Oh, that's official. That's like not like some.
That's no. It's like it's like an official thing they made. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But it just seems like a much more
merch front on the online.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Stuff there.
Yeah.
Justin, anything fun to share? Any updates? Any foaming or anything like that you've been doing?
Actually, any new shows? Anything new to show and tell? I don't know that I have anything new to show. I have been playing a lot of Foam Stars, which I don't know, might be an interesting topic at some point. It is not as good as Splatoon. It is not a Splatoon killer. It shares some mechanical similarity to it, but also a lot of dissimilarity to it. So, Nintendo fans, Splatoon fans, you don't need to worry about Foam Stars.
Splatoon's not going anywhere.
We did, and it was and we had fun. But kind of my takeaway was that I don't know if I'll ever play it again, but I enjoyed my evening with it.
Well, and I will.
It's free to play, right?
And like any other multiplayer game like that, if you are playing with friends, you'll have fun regardless.
Yeah, exactly. The thing I appreciated the most about it is I'm kind of like I'm into like non-violent games sometimes, or games that aren't all about killing. And one of the first things they tell you in that game is that they're not called kills, they're called chills when you eliminate another player. And I thought that was just really cute. And yeah, I liked that. I like it when games mix it up like that, and it's not all about shooting to kill. Yeah, I thought it's cute. Yeah, if you have a PlayStation, it's on PS Plus this month, so check it out.
Meanwhile, Pal World exists.
Yeah, it does. A game very much about shooting and killing.
And only on the most surface level, extremely tangentially related to any Nintendo properties.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into EGAD's emails. You can always email the show, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. We have 2 emails to get to this week. The first comes from Derek, who says, "Hi guys, love the show. My question is, what's your favorite weird or unique Nintendo peripheral?" Great question, Derek. Mine has to be the Game Boy printer. As a kid, it was such a novel experience to take ugly little pictures with the Game Boy camera and print ugly little stickers of them. I like that both the pictures and the stickers were ugly. That's great detail. The technology was limited, but for the time, it was really special. Did either of you guys have the Game Boy printer?
Nope.
Kid down the street from me had it.
My cousin had it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you both knew somebody with it. Did you ever use it?
I was just I've been envious my entire life of people that have owned the Game Boy.
Yep.
How come? Why?
Why did I not own it?
No, why were you envious? Why are you envious?
Oh, because I thought it was so cool. Yeah, it was just weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. All right, Chris, anything come to mind of a weird Nintendo peripheral that you love?
There are many. But the Power Pad is one that I still don't own. But it's just one of those things, like, there's no way to use it quietly. I just think it's so funny. Like, we used to play use that thing for track and field in my cousin's room, and man, like, he was on the second floor, and it just sounded like you were going to come through the ceiling if you were downstairs.
Tell us about it. What is the Power Pad?
Did you ever cheat using the Power Pad?
Oh, yeah. So the Power Pad, if you're not aware, it's almost like a DDR mat that you would use it for track and field, and you would have to sprint on this thing like as fast as you possibly could, and then you could like jump, and you would jump over hurdles and stuff like that. But it was for the original Nintendo. There were blue and red circles on it.
Yes,
that's another one.
Like a 4x4 plastic mat with a couple of rows of these circles, and those were the spots that you would, in theory, run in place on.
Yeah, and
jump.
It's just such a silly thing. Yep,
it's really fun.
One.
Like there's stuff from the beginning to now of Nintendo's video game history that is just weird and bizarre and totally unnecessary, but cool. Like, seriously, from the NES era, like you're just talking about, and there's Rob in that era, and the original Zapper in that era, to now where we have cardboard pianos and Pilates rings and just all sorts of crazy things in between. It's awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff to pick here. Justin, how about you?
Well, I'm still waiting for my Wii Vitality sensor pre-order to come through, so I'll have to hold judgment till that time. Yeah, I mean, there's been so many good ones. Like the Super Scope 6 was hilarious because we went from this like like little like handheld gun zapper to an actual bazooka, which is just so like trying so hard to be like grown up and I don't know, edgy or what. But some of my favorites, the Super Game Boy was incredible. Being able to play Game Boy games on the big screen, and especially at that time, because that was before we had any backlit Game Boys, being able to see it, what was happening was huge. You could like select through a couple of different color palettes, and there's some bangers on the original Game Boy, and so having those be like readily accessible was huge. We never had it here. I do think the Satella view was one of the most like forward-thinking advanced ideas of its time, honestly, as was the e-reader that lets you use little cards to like add levels and content to games. So they've done some really cool stuff.
They did VR and live service in the 90s. Like, that's crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah, that's why they're so against it now.
And robotics, and
firearms. And
that brings me to what my actual pick, though, is motion controls, which was the legendary Power Glove. As an 80s and 90s kid who watched The Wizard growing up, it was the coolest accessory imaginable. I understand that it worked absolutely terribly, but like it is so iconic. This big super tech looking glove with all the buttons on it, which of course would be a terrible way to play a game. It had motion controls, and I was actually reading about it in prep for this show, and like the way the motion controls worked is actually like use audio, a transmitter and receiver to detect changes in like pitch and roll, which is
cool.
So stinking cool. It's also the cheapest version of a more expensive technology possible, so it worked terribly. But the idea is so genius, and like it is to this day so iconic. I have never used one, and it is absolutely on like my video game bucket list to get my hand on one sometime.
Yeah, I think we saw one together at PAX in the Nintendo Power exhibit. They had one there. I've seen them in person a handful of times, and yeah, they are so cool. It looks like the coolest thing ever. It is so
to this day still the coolest looking technology of all time.
The only thing,
because like as a society,
it's been all downhill since the Power Glove came out. Now, the only thing with them now is like, how many people have owned the Power Glove that you might buy on eBay?
Like, how many hands have been in that glove?
How many hands have slid into that thing?
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones, Justin, to shout out, or is there?
Okay, I mean, there's so many. You know, I'm going to take every opportunity to remind folks of the time at PAX where I watched you crush F-Zero on the Donkey Kongas, which was hilarious. That was so funny. Oh, okay. So one last shout out with the Super Nintendo mouse, because Mario Paint was rad. It was so much fun. It was really great to do art with it. It had a really cool system in it where you could make music, and you would actually drop like little stamps which would make different tones onto your like treble clef, and so you could make whole songs. And it had this like fly swatter mini game that was so much fun and so ridiculous, where you would manipulate the mouse around to move the fly swatter and whack flies, and then like you'd have to like dodge them and avoid them, and there'd be big giant boss hornets and stuff. It's so good, and I wish that there was somebody would come up with a solution to bring that to consoles, because I would play that game today.
Yeah, Mario Paint's cool. That's one of the few Super Nintendo games I own, and I have the mouse. I do.
Oh,
I got it.
Yes.
Some kid in middle school was giving away his box of Super Nintendo stuff, and I bought it off of him, and it included the mouse and the cartridge and a few other things too. So yeah, that's a fun one.
That flash
Chris,
water
any
game
other
is
ones you want
rad.
to shout out?
I just googled like weird Nintendo accessories.
Oh god,
I totally forgot about the laser scope for the NES. It's like a full helmet.
Oh, is that the thing you like wear?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that too.
Look that up.
Thank you.
It's like voice activated, right?
Yeah, it has like an eye scope and like a almost like a microphone, like a boom mic hanging off of it. It's so
that
funny.
is crazy. I've never seen this before. Yeah. That's insane. That is awesome.
There's that. There's the I have the Game Boy. It wasn't an official Nintendo accessory, but it was the one where you would strap it on the front and it would magnify the screen of the Game Boy, but then it also had the speakers and it made the buttons bigger. I can't remember what the name of that is. That one was weird. The bongos I love.
Yeah, I always loved like, you know, kids who had like not just the Game Boy, but the fully armed and operational Game Boy with the magnifier and the speakers and the sticks on it and stuff. Man, there's so much weird stuff. There's a sewing machine.
Yep.
That I think it connects to like the GBA. Yeah, there's a Game Boy Advance compatible sewing machine.
Yeah, you guys have mentioned a lot of good ones. I gotta go shout out to the Game Boy Player, which is just the Game Boy Advance GameCube era version of the Super Game Boy. Yeah, you plug it into the bottom of your GameCube, and you play all your GBA games on the TV, which felt super novel to me at the time. I still use it. I still have it, and I actively use it for like the F-Zero Game Boy Advance games and things like that I play on the big screen. That's just super cool. I have a soft spot for the 3DS Circle Pad Pro because it just makes your 3DS look like the most hulking, ugly handheld imaginable. It's hilarious. I do have one, and it actually works pretty well. It's more comfortable than it looks, but it's still just hilarious. They made an XL version that never came to America of the Circle Pad Pro to fit a 3DS XL, and it's just enormous. The Wavebird is kind of one. It's their first wireless controller, the GameCube one. It's probably my favorite Nintendo controller of all time. The Nintendo GameCube Wavebird.
The amazing thing the related amazing peripheral to me is when they released the device so that you could use your old GameCube controllers with Smash on modern consoles.
Yes. Yeah, it made your Wii U look like an octopus because you had that, you had the external hard drive, you had all sorts of things coming out of it, like the sensor bar. Yeah, the Kid Icarus Uprising 3DS stand that made that box a lot bigger in stores is really funny to me and relevant to what we're doing this weekend. Yeah, because they knew that game was so uncomfortable to play holding it that they shipped it with a stand that you could prop your 3DS up on it so you didn't have to hold it. But you're sitting at like the counter to play this game. It's kind of a bizarre thing. But Chris, did you actually break out your stand when you were playing Kid Icarus?
No, my stand is in storage. I still have it. I still have the box and everything, but no, I didn't bust it out. That's also like meant for the standard size 3DS, and like to use the XL, I feel like it would just, in general though, I feel like the whole thing is just going to fall over the whole time you're using it and like slide around the desk. It doesn't make sense. I do want to give a shout out to the N64 transfer pack because that thing blew my mind as a child. Being able to import, so if you owned the original Pokemon Game Boy games or Gen 2, you would pop your game into there, and then you would put in Pokemon Stadium for first gen or Pokemon Stadium 2 for the second gen. You can import your Pokemon into those games, and you could battle on the big screen. And honestly, I still to this day feel like it's like the best that Pokemon battles have ever looked in a video game. Next to probably Pokemon Battle Revolution, which a lot of people don't like, and I don't really know why. Because I thought that game looked pretty good too. On the
Wii.
The
like Coliseum and Gale of Darkness, how they look in the GameCube era too.
Yeah, they look good too. But I don't think you could import your Pokemon into that one.
You could from Ruby and Sapphire. Yeah, if you plugged your GBA in through the link cable into the GameCube, you could.
Oh, okay. I never did that.
Speaking of wild accessories,
the bonus disc
GBAs as GameCube accessories.
Yes. Yeah. Or that app they released so you could use your 3DS as a controller on Smash Wii U. Like, just crazy. Like, I really want to know how many people used that. Yeah. The GameCube mic. You guys remember that one that shipped with Mario Party? It was the microphone that plugged into your second memory card slot, and then
it was Mario Party 7.
Yeah, and you used it for mini games like blow up the balloon or sing the right note, and yeah, they didn't work very well. And you not play those mini games.
Not made by Nintendo, but related to that. Back on the GameCube, do either of you recall the game Odama?
It sounds very familiar.
So,
yeah,
Odama, it's sort of like a feudal Japan like strategy war game, but basically what happens is there's a giant ball rolling around, and you actually have a little headset with a microphone, and you're shouting to go left, and all your little like army runs to the left so they don't get crushed by this giant rolling ball. It's hilarious. Wow. If you haven't seen videos of it, check it out. It's actually pretty rad. And yeah, when you bought it, it came with a headset. And like the only problem with the game is the headset did kind of suck. So it wasn't always particularly good about picking up on what you were trying to say. But it's so stinking cool.
That sounds really cool. I gotta look into that. I've not heard of that.
That's actually a Nintendo published game on the GameCube.
There you go. Yeah, it's
a very late GameCube game, 2006.
Yeah,
it's a pinball strategy voice control game, and it is even cooler than it sounds.
That's great. There's so many. We could fill on.
We could do an entire show on.
We could.
Shout out. We've talked about these before too, but I thought the AR cards on the 3DS were cool. They shipped with like 6 or 7 of them with Link, Kirby, Mario, Samus, and you could.
Did you ever get the big one from Club Nintendo?
I never got the big one. No, did you like print it out or?
No, so you would you ordered it with your Club Nintendo points, and then they shipped it, and it was just this big like unfolding like AR card. It was the question block one, so you could just have your Mii like giant, like human sized, basically with it.
It's like it was pre Pokemon Go AR, early AR stuff on Nintendo consoles.
Yeah.
Any final call before we move on to our last question here?
The only thing I want to add is 10 years from now, we're going to be looking back and laughing about all the cardboard they made.
Yes. Yeah, I'm already laughing about it. They made
I have a Labo set that I've never opened, and I'm like,
hold on
to that. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, it could be a fun thing to bust out when James is older. I don't know.
I actually think Labo's pretty cool. I got the first set and I did build it, and of course it's just sitting in a closet now, but it was more fun than I thought it was going to be. Really clever directions on how to put it together. It's like you would expect from Nintendo, just super intuitive, creative ways to tell you how to fold this cardboard. And then the tech actually worked pretty well for the piano was the one I remember thinking was the most fun. But no, it's cool. It's cool. Probably gain value if you leave it sealed, but I think in a few years with your son, that could be cool. Because I was playing like, man, a kid would love this, is how I felt.
Oh yeah. No, I'm bummed I never got the piano one.
Which set do you have?
I feel like it's the robot.
It's the fishing pole?
The one.
It's either the robot. There was one with like a gun, right? Like a scope or something.
Yes. Yeah. There's 4 sets. There's the Variety Kit 1, which is the one I got. That's the one that came out on launch day. That has the like motorcycle, the fishing rod, the house, and the piano. Then Variety Kit 2. I don't remember all the ones that has. And then there's the robot kit, and then there's the VR headset. Which is
I have that too. Okay. It's so silly.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This last question comes from Chad, who writes in and says, "Hello, Toadstool Boardroom members. Thanks for sharing videos of the podcast on YouTube again. My spouse and I have enjoyed watching them each week." Glad to hear it, Chad. This question's for Logan, since I know he visited Japan in 2023, or anyone else who's visited Japan. My spouse and I hope to visit Japan sometime in the next few years. Would you be willing to share any tips or recommendations for visiting Japan? Here's a spreadsheet that I created of some of the places that we hope to visit someday. And Chad sent me the spreadsheet, and it has all the Nintendo highlights that you need to hit. It has Super Nintendo World, the Nintendo headquarters in Kyoto, the Nintendo Museum, which wasn't open when I was over there, and I need to go back so I can go to that. So, yeah, I'm excited that you get to go see that, Chad. And then, Nintendo stores. You don't need to spend time hitting all 3 Nintendo stores. There's one in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. They're all very similar. I just recommend the Tokyo one. That one is really cool. Or the Kyoto one, because it's the newest and has an interesting kind of different layout. But I went to the Osaka one after the Tokyo one, and it's basically identical. The same kind of goes for the Pokemon centers. They all have pretty much the same stuff in them. They're cool to see if you just happen to want to buy one, but you don't need to hit all of them up. And then has some other things on here too, like the Nintendo Hotel. Yes, that is a must. That is super cool. The building where Nintendo was founded in the 1800s. Just awesome to see that. Has a little plaque on the outside that says like Nintendo Playing Card Company. Insanely cool. You're not allowed to go in the hotel unless you have a reservation. They don't even let nerds like us walk inside because it's a very expensive hotel, so they don't want a bunch of people in there snapping pictures. I hope to stay there someday when I go back. But that's very cool. So I think you have...
There's sorry, real quick. If you know Bob Wolfden on YouTube, I think it was when he was still on Nintendo. There's footage of him in that hotel. They had ended up staying there over the summer. So if you're curious what the rooms look like or anything, they do a podcast from inside of there.
Not just the outside of the building. Yeah, I would recommend. There is a ton of cool Nintendo stuff to do in Japan, but honestly, the coolest stuff is the non-gaming stuff, like some of the historic sites like Fushimi Inari Shrine, which is right by, actually, the Nintendo Hotel. It is a shrine with, like, thousands of torii gates that you walk through, and you hike up a mountain going through tunnels that are made of these torii gates, and it's gorgeous. If you go at sunset, it's amazing. That's a must. About a mile north of that is Kiyomizudera, which is a huge Buddhist temple that overlooks the entire city of Kyoto. If you ever look up, like, things to do in Kyoto, and there's that picture overlooking, like, the trees, you see the city in the background, and there's, like, this huge temple with a deck. That's that, and it's absolutely worth seeing. It's incredible. And yeah, this stuff's all within walking distance of train stations. So those are the two big ones that I would say in Kyoto that you absolutely have to do. I can think of some more recommendations and maybe post them in our Discord, which is now a group community server if you want to learn more. But I would say the two coolest things that I saw in Japan were those two historic sites, the Fushimi Inari Shrine, which still has a Nintendo-related bend because it's like in the E3 2015 video where Miyamoto's talking about Star Fox Zero, that's where he is, because Fushimi Inari Shrine is a fox shrine. So he's talking about Star Fox and how he thought of the idea about flying through torii gates, like flying underneath them, and that's kind of how Star Fox was. So, yep, but those are my two biggest recommendations. But that's exciting. I really want to go back. Maybe I hear somebody might go for TGS this year. So
I'm hoping.
see if that ends up happening. That would be really, really awesome. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Toadstool Boardroom. We're a weekly Nintendo show here on Thursdays at noon Pacific or 3 p.m. Eastern on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to your shows. And the video version is up on YouTube. Justin, what are you working on and where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at KOREIS. Right now I'm working on some Foamstar video guides for IGN, so keep an eye on there for anything that might pop out. You might even see Logan's character pop in at some points in some of those clips, so we'll see how that turns out. And then, just, keep an eye on the internet. I'll be around.
Be around. Chris, what's going on with you and where can people find you?
Oh, being a dad. You can find me at Shrives93. I also just got a Blue Sky account. I might make one for the Toadstool Boardroom as well, so we get reserved on there. Yeah, hope to see you guys for game night this Saturday. Be sure to check out the Discord link on Twitter.
Yes, and we'll put it in the episode description, too. If you don't have Twitter and you just listen to the show or watch the show, we'll put that Discord link in the description of this episode so you can check it out there. That's Game Night Saturday, February 10th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Charge your 3DS up and get ready for Kid Icarus Uprising, Mario Kart 7, and Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. Can't wait to see you there. Until next time, for Chris and Justin, I'm Logan. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.